Chapter 3. What the Records Don't Say. There's exactly one W. Pruitt in Mercer Hollow, and finding him takes Hollis and Theo less effort than finding parking near his house. Walt Pruitt lives alone on a quiet lot at the edge of town, a low ranch house with a single light on most evenings, and a no soliciting sign that two teenagers with a binder full of theories absolutely qualify as. He does not let them in. The first real obstacle here isn't supernatural at all. It's an old man who has spent 50 years building a wall around one specific year of his life, and who recognizes immediately what they're here about the second Hollis says the word 1974. His face closes like a door. He tells them, evenly, that he doesn't talk about the mine, hasn't in decades, and that whatever they think they're chasing, they should go home and let old things stay old. A girl is missing, Hollis says. She had your name written down. Twice. Something moves behind Pruitt's eyes. Not surprise exactly. Recognition. He already knew that somehow, or feared it. But he still shuts the door, gently, without another word. And the porch light goes off a few seconds later, even though it's not yet fully dark. Rejected but not done, Hollis pivots to the next layer of the investigation, the public record. This is where things slow down and let the town's physical history do the talking. A long, atmospheric sequence in the Mercer Hollow Public Library, in the basement that floods every April, surrounded by water-stained boxes of old newspaper microfiche that the town never quite got around to digitizing. It's tedious, unglamorous work, and nothing here is rushed. Theo running the microfiche reader, while Hollis cross-references dates, both of them eating gas station snacks on the floor of a basement that's 3 degrees colder than it should be, joking about it specifically so neither of them has to admit they've both noticed. What they find, slowly, is a discrepancy that won't resolve on its own. The Mercer Hollow Courier's contemporary coverage of the 1974 disaster describes a rescue effort. Equipment requested from 2 neighboring counties. Families gathering at the mine gate for 2 full days waiting on word. Then, abruptly, 3 days after the fire started underground, a single, terse follow-up. The shaft has been sealed for safety. Recovery is not possible. All 11 men are presumed lost. 3 days. For a rescue operation that, by every account they can find, was supposed to take at least a week, with equipment already inbound. Hollis finds Greer Coal Company's own filed safety report from the same week. Dry, procedural, bureaucratic in the specific way that makes it worse, citing uncontrollable subterranean combustion and structural integrity concerns as the reason for immediate sealing. No mention of the inbound rescue equipment. No mention of why 3 days became the cutoff instead of 7. It reads, Hollis says quietly, like a company doing math on what a longer rescue would cost against what a faster one would save, and deciding, on day 3, that 11 men weren't worth the difference. There is a private, important beat here. He finds, tucked in among the Courier's back issues from a full decade later, a single human interest piece about miners' families still seeking answers. And one of the names quoted, a local man pushing for a reopened inquiry that never happened, is Daniel Brennan. Not his father. A different Daniel Brennan, a generation back. Hollis's grandfather, who Hollis barely has memories of, and who he never knew had anything to do with this at all. It's a quiet gut punch of a discovery, handled with restraint. The binder his father kept wasn't an isolated hobby. It was, possibly without either of them ever fully realizing it, a thread that ran through 3 generations of his family, all separately drawn to the same unanswered question about the same town. Theo, watching him go quiet over the photocopy, doesn't make a joke this time. He just says, "You okay?" and means it. And Hollis says, "Yeah," and doesn't entirely mean it. And the friendship between them is allowed to just sit in that for a second, without resolving it. The final movement of this stretch takes them back to Pruitt's house, this time with the courier clippings and the discrepancy laid out plainly on his porch step, because Hollis has decided, correctly, that the way through Pruitt isn't pressure. It's proof that he isn't the only one who's noticed something was wrong. Pruitt doesn't open the door this time either, but he doesn't turn the porch light off right away. And through the screen, after a long silence, his voice comes out rougher than before. "She came here too. The Voss girl. Same questions. Same look on her face yours has got." A pause. "I didn't talk to her either. I've thought about that every day since she went missing." Another silence. Then, quieter. "Come back Sunday. Not before." The door doesn't open, but it doesn't close all the way either. And that's enough. Chapter 4. What Pruitt Knows. Walt Pruitt's house on a Sunday afternoon looks different than it did on a Tuesday night. Windows open, light in. A man who's clearly spent 3 days deciding to do something he's avoided for 50 years and has finally run out of road to keep avoiding it on. He lets them in this time. Everything slows down for this scene deliberately. The quietest, most devastating sequence of the season. An old man finally saying out loud the thing he's carried alone since he was younger than Hollis is now. He wasn't supposed to be on the surface that day. Rotation swap, a favor for a friend who wanted Sunday off. Walt took the Thursday shift change without thinking twice about it, the kind of small, arbitrary decision that means nothing until it means everything. He was topside when the alarm went off. He watched from outside as the fire response came together in real time. And he watched, over the following 3 days, as it came apart. "They had the equipment," he says. "I know they had it. I helped unload some of it myself. Crews from 2 counties over, standing around with nothing to do because management wouldn't authorize the descent. Said the structural readings were bad. Said it was too dangerous." His hands are very still in his lap. "I've read structural readings my whole life. Those weren't bad enough to stop a rescue. They were bad enough to make stopping a rescue look responsible." He confirms what the records implied. The company did the math, and 11 miners' lives cost less, on paper, than a longer rescue operation with no guaranteed outcome and a mounting public bill. The shaft was sealed on day 3, not because it had to be, but because day 3 was when the cost curve crossed over. And then he tells them something the records didn't have, because it was never written down anywhere official. There's a second way into the old workings, a ventilation and emergency egress shaft cut decades before the main disaster, half collapsed and unmapped on any survey the company ever filed. Because admitting it existed would have meant admitting there was a second way the rescue could have gone in. That the official, no recovery possible, ceiling left a door unaccounted for. A handful of old mining families know where it is. Pruitt is one of the last people alive who does. "The Voss girl found out about it too," he says. "Same way you're about to. I told her where it was because I was tired of being the last man who knew and never used it for anything." His voice cracks, just slightly, on the last part. "I should have gone with her." This is the central gut check of it all. Pruitt drawing them a rough map of the shaft's location, on the same kind of paper Hollis's binder is full of. 3 generations of Mercer Hollow's quiet record keepers converging on the same buried door. The second half of this stretch raises the external pressure. Word gets back to Sheriff Decker, through the school, through Pruitt himself, through the small-town grapevine, that nothing in Mercer Hollow stays quiet for long. That Hollis Brennan has been pulling 60-year-old mine records and bothering Walt Pruitt about 1974. Decker shows up at Brennan Hardware in person, not in uniform, which somehow makes it worse. A neighbor's visit with the weight of a warning underneath it. He's not cruel. That's important. He genuinely cares about the town and genuinely believes what he is about to say. He tells Hollis, gently but unmistakably, to leave this alone. That Mara's disappearance is being handled. That stirring up an old tragedy that already cost this town 11 men and 40 years of grief isn't going to bring her home. And that some of the families involved, his own included, though he doesn't say so directly, have spent a long time finding peace with how that history got told. It's a quiet, loaded scene. We learn, in pieces, that Decker's own father supervised the sealing on behalf of the company. A detail Decker doesn't volunteer, but doesn't quite manage to hide either, in the careful way he avoids certain phrasing. He's not protecting a company. He's protecting his father's name, and the only version of his hometown he knows how to live in. Hollis doesn't argue with him. He just doesn't agree either. And that night, with Theo reluctantly along, on the explicit condition that they are looking, not going in, a line Theo repeats 3 times like it'll hold. They find the shaft exactly where Pruitt's map says it will be. A rusted grate, half swallowed by brush, deep in the woods past the edge of the burn, warmer to the touch than the night air has any right to make it. And caught in the brush, 6 feet from the grate, half buried in fallen leaves like it's been there for days, Mara's bike. Theo's, looking not going in, doesn't survive the discovery. Neither does the last shred of plausible deniability. The grate, when Hollis pulls at it, gives way easier than 50 years of rust should allow. Recently moved, recently opened, recently used. This part ends on Hollis at the mouth of the shaft, headlamp in hand, looking down into a dark that goes further than the light reaches. Theo's voice behind him saying his name in a tone that means we need to call someone, and Hollis's silence meaning there's no time.